I'm Kyle Kaufman at HKK Law Offices. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the top 5 mistakes that men make during a divorce. Whether it's a divorce action, a child custody matter, or child support action, I see men make a lot of mistakes. Now, I've been doing this for over 18 years, and times are changing, and some of the mistakes that I'm about to discuss apply to women too, but more often than not, they are made by men. So don't get me wrong, women make mistakes, including the ones that I'll lay out here. But again, in my time, it's men that are more routinely making these mistakes, and maybe that'll change in the future. So here are my top 5 mistakes that I see men make in their family law proceedings. Mistake number 1, sacrificing for everyone else. And what I mean by that is more often than women, men are the ones making sacrifices to promote change in the family structure. They're the ones who take the action, and they make these choices that put them behind. They trust that the other party will somehow look out for their best interests, and they believe that the other party or the court will reward them later for sacrificing financially and in their relationships with their children. So I see men move out of the family home without a plan, and they often move into a family member's home. They might move into a friend's home, and they do that to save money. And they often move out and then rent a cheap apartment to save money. And those measures may save some money, but it puts men in an unequal playing ground. The women continue to live in the home with all the home amenities, and the woman continues to enjoy the same lifestyle, and the relationships with the children go uninterrupted. So the woman still has access to and use of all personal property, from pots and pans to bedroom sets, toys, entertainment, devices, and more, right? Versus men, after they move out, they find themselves in smaller spaces, they have less bedrooms, there's less stuff, they end up having their kids share rooms or new bedrooms. Sometimes they have no bedrooms at all. I've seen children sleep on sofas, and sometimes even in the same bedroom as their father. So the man ends up having less stuff, and he then needs to go and buy the items: bedding, clothing, cookingware, toys, sporting gear, entertainment devices, and more. And while all this is going on, the woman is building a case against the man that his home now is not suitable. These arguments are developed, such as he has no bedding for the kids, he doesn't know what they need, the kids have no space. If a man moves in with a family member or roommate, that can be a source of contention for the women too. They may argue that the man's mother or father is doing the parenting and the cooking, the cleaning, the transportation, and the childcare. They may complain that the family members are inserting themselves into the lives of the child in a negative way. And if a man moves in with a roommate, and a number of issues arise. Who is this roommate? Is the person safe? Are the children left alone with them? So despite all these issues, I see men still doing it all the time. They move out, they downsize, and then they tell me, well, she said I can come over to the house and see the kids whenever I want. What I say is, good luck with that. Kids are not things, I know that. However, it's certainly easier to keep what you have than it is to get something back that you gave up. So when you leave your kids behind and you move out, and then you plan to get back into the home to see the kids, all you really have is hope. You're trusting that the other person will allow that. You now need permission from your estranged wife or girlfriend to see your child. Can I come see the kids? When can I come? Are you going to be there? Can I use things that are at the house? Can I take the children someplace else? Will there be food for me to feed the children? Can I have access to the kids' things so I can play with them? You now have to ask for permission for all of these things. So the dynamics completely change, and you go from a parent who had 100% access to everything, including your children, to a parent who now needs permission. And that's an awkward spot to be in. So, well, what about saving money? Isn't that important, right? Well, yes, saving money is always important, but the father should not be the only one sacrificing. And I think men do it based on old societal norms and or for reasons as to how they were raised. They think it's the right thing to do. The fact of the matter is that men deserve a standard of living that is similar to that of the wife or girlfriend when they move out. And while it cannot never be apples to apples in 2 different homes, and there may not even be enough money to go around for 2 homes to make it substantially similar, but you want to do that as best as possible. Establish a new home that is similar, and similar to what kids enjoyed with their mother. So find an apartment or a home with appropriate bedrooms in a safe neighborhood with no family members or roommates. And do this before you leave the family home. Make a list of the items that you'll take with you and the ones that you will leave behind. Share that list with the other side and decide together what you will take. And if your wife or girlfriend truly believes in doing what is best for your child, then that person will work with you to make sure that you do have the adequate things that you need to set up your new home. So take the items, set them up in your home before your children visit. So what if you need to buy new things to make your home comfortable for your children? Of course, you can't divide up a bed, right? So then you have to do it. You just have to go and buy it. And then you can make a claim later in your case for a reduction in support possibly, or compensation from the other party in the division of assets. So get set up and worry about the cost later. Do what's best for your kids, make it comfortable for them, enjoyable and fun. You want this to be a place where they want to live. Here's the other thing. I also see men giving too much money to women. It's like they feel bad and they think that the court or the other party will be nicer to them because they're taking care of their estranged wife or girlfriend. Just remember, you have your own living expenses now and in the future. And so does she. And both parties need to be responsible for their living expenses. You need to make a plan for that. Don't give more money or assets than you have to. I have seen men do strange things just prior to a separation and filing for the family action. I've seen them take money and pay down debt, and that's a common mistake. Men think that paying down debt makes it less likely that they'll have to pay spousal support or child support. They think that the wife's assets are all paid for, so what would she need? She has no debt is the argument. Well, what I see when that happens is all it does is eliminate the cash now that's available for living expenses. Men take their savings, they spend it down, they pay off the debt, and now they have no money except for their paycheck to live off of. And they may have to use their income to pay spousal support and child support. And men complain in these situations and they're confused. How could that be? She doesn't have any debt. I just paid for everything. I should be able to keep my money. They don't understand why women need the money, and they expect the woman and the children to live on the assets and the items that they already have. All right, guys, mistake number 2 is that men, more often than women, are not forthcoming about their finances. It's just a trend, unfortunately, that I've seen over my time. And in every family law action in Wisconsin, both parties are required to file financial disclosure statements. We call it an FDS. There, in an FDS, you're supposed to detail all your income, expenses, assets, and debts. But what's interesting to me is that in attracting a mate, men will typically brag about their income and assets, and they'll minimize their debts and expenses, right? But of course, at the time of separation and divorce, they tend to minimize the income and assets, and they emphasize their expenses and debts. Hiding income, unfortunately, is all too common, and it comes up with business owners, investors, real estate investors. People start businesses and invest money to make money, right? They're responsible for complying with the IRS rules and the taxing rules of the state where they reside. But remember, what the taxing authorities identify as income is not what the family courts use to classify income. So if you're a man or a woman involved in a family matter where one party owns a business or you're an investor is involved, you need to have an accountant on board to review the tax returns and business records. That person will help you read the returns and records to find income from the business and investments that may not be taxable but are relevant to your case. The tax laws are designed to encourage business creation, activity, job growth, and to give people an incentive to start their businesses, and the government does give tax breaks to those people. But what happens is that the business owners then have the income or access to it, and an accountant can help you find it, explain it, and you can then make your claims in family court to identify those sources of income. Men oftentimes ask the courts to simply rely on their tax returns for their income, but that does not take into account all the income and assets and benefits they get from the business. Now, attorneys know what to look for as well. I know I do. I still rely on accountants, however, because if I need to prove something in court to help a judge understand the income of the business owner and the assets, the accountant serves as really an excellent expert witness for that. In one particular case, we discovered a business owner did not disclose his business contracts and the accounts receivable. And what we found is that this man, while his divorce was pending, had actually provided services and products to customers, but he held off on billing them or collecting on the fees he was entitled to until after the divorce was finalized. And as a result, at the time of the divorce, it appeared that his business was worth less than it was actually worth. But had the woman known that the business was due to collect hundreds of thousands of dollars, she certainly would have been more interested in being awarded the business or assets from the business. She would have had a better claim to child support and spousal support had she known that the man was due to receive regular payments from his customers that would be considered income for purposes of support orders. I've seen men strangely decide to move money around. They ask questions about transferring assets to other people in order to avoid having to give up assets and income. And I think this mentality comes from a mistaken belief, really, that this is my money, that I earned it, that she's not entitled to it. So Wisconsin's a community property state, meaning that all assets are to be divided equally, and that's the starting point of the analysis. If there are good reasons under the law to unequally divide assets, it can be done, but no one should start with the idea that it's solely their money or asset unless the income or asset is excluded from the marital estate because it is a gift, inheritance, or subject to premarital agreement or a postnuptial agreement. I've seen men particularly confused, upset, they're annoyed that their assets are being equally divided. This applies to equity in your home, your retirement plans, pension, business, investments, your items of personal property that have significant value. And that brings me really to my third mistake that are made by men. Mistake number 3 is not having an attorney represent you. Men, more often than women, attempt to do it themselves until it is too late. There are 3 phases where men miss the mark. The first phase is prior to marriage, or the birth of a child if the child is conceived and born prior to a marriage. The second phase is after marriage and prior to divorce, or filing of a family law action. The third phase is after the divorce or family law action has been filed. Now, remember, the attorney-client relationship is a relationship between you and the attorney. It's not a relationship that involves or needs to involve your significant other. Similar to the medical community, lawyers are sworn to protect your confidence. We cannot reveal information to others or even acknowledge that you are a client unless you have given us consent to do so. So please hire an attorney to protect your legal rights at all 3 phases. In the first phase, prior to marriage or the birth of a child prior to a marriage, parties have an opportunity to sit down with a lawyer to understand their rights. And this is the phase to learn from a lawyer about what you can do to prepare for the change in your life so that you are not surprised after marriage or the birth of that child. You should hire the attorney. You can consider premarital agreements to protect your assets and income. You can learn how the birth of a child outside of marriage impacts your rights to custody and placement. In missing the first phase, parties make mistakes on how to protect their inheritance, gifts, and premarital assets. By missing the mark, the assets then can often become intermingled with the marital estate after marriage. If you have assets, business, gift, or inheritance, you would be wise to discuss this with your attorney so you can learn your rights and discuss options for how to protect what you already have. In the second phase, parties often overlook the agreements that can be made after marriage that could protect income and assets. Likewise, after a child is born outside of a marriage, men overlook the need to sit down with a lawyer to understand their custodial and financial rights and obligations. Men often assume they have control and they can do it alone and without help. They may do it to save money, they might do it out of pride, or simply feel like they have the knowledge. But it's not uncommon for a man to go his entire life without ever speaking to a lawyer until it's too late. And men, when making changes in their lives, they go into this action mode. They start doing things, including things we've already talked about in the video, like moving out, hiding money, manipulating money, and sacrificing. And by taking action, they think they're solving problems, but in fact, they're often making it worse. So in the third phase, after the divorce or action has been started, men again, more often than women, rely on what got them there to get them to the next point in their life. They rely on their own skills and knowledge. They don't hire an attorney. Meanwhile, the woman hires a competent lawyer, looks out for her best interests, and helps the woman with the legal process and strategy that best serves her interests. And men, when making changes in their lives, they go into this action mode. They start doing things, including things we've already talked about in the video, like moving out, hiding money, manipulating money, and sacrificing. And by taking action, they think they're solving problems, but in fact, they're often making it worse. So in the third phase, after the divorce or action has been started, men again, more often than women, rely on what got them there to get them to the next point in their life. They rely on their own skills and knowledge. They don't hire an attorney. Meanwhile, the woman hires a competent lawyer, looks out for her best interests, and helps the woman with the legal process and strategy that best serves her interests. And men, for whatever reason, they take on the challenge. Oftentimes they end up hiring an attorney, but by then the damage has been done. It's too late. Orders have been made. Decisions and actions already acted on. And he's just simply fallen behind. This comes up in child custody cases, placement arrangements, how income is shared, and how assets are divided. So men oftentimes then find themselves mystified. It's like a glazed look over their eyes. I've seen it. It's too bad. They were, for whatever reason, too proud or ashamed to hire an attorney. And for the men who attempted to manipulate their income and assets prior to or during the divorce proceedings and who now are representing themselves, they suffer the most. They're deemed liars, untrustworthy, they break trust with the court, the child advocate, and the lawyers, and it becomes difficult for them to gain any footing back in the case. And these are all things that are important to their life. Children, their money, and their dignity all become lost. Final tip on this one is hire the right attorney. Choose an attorney who only focuses on family law and divorce actions. General practice attorneys or attorneys who do not normally handle family law actions are not what you need in these situations. Now, I can practice any type of law, but I choose to practice only family law. And by graduating from law school and passing the bar exam, I have the privilege of practicing in all areas, including personal injury, criminal, estate planning. But by focusing on family law, I know the laws that are specific and applicable to your type of case. I know how to navigate these complex matters that are near and dear to your heart. And all attorneys at HKK law offices are the same. We all practice family law and focus on family law. Sometimes this can be hard to find in small towns where the local attorneys are general practice attorneys, but an attorney is better than no attorney, but I encourage you to hire an attorney who focuses only on family law. Here's the fourth mistake that men make, and that is to come to court with no plan for their children. I know a lawyer, he's now retired, and when I was young, he told me he wanted to write 2 books. The first book was called How to Keep My Children from Him, and that would be geared towards women. And the second book was called How to Get 50-50 and was geared towards men. Now, this attorney was joking and he made this up. However, from his experience in family law matters, this is what men and women often talked about. Women had a plan for how to maximize their time with their children and minimize the time with the father, while the father simply wanted 50-50 or half the time. So when I meet with parties, I listen to what they want. And men oftentimes speak in very general terms, and quite literally when asked what they propose for placement, they say, I want 50-50. I always encourage them to dig deeper. What does that mean? Why is a plan important? A plan tells everyone that you are thoughtful. It tells people that you have insight. It tells people that you are aware of your child's needs and you have considered their best interests. You want to be as detailed as possible in your plan for placement. What are the specifics of your request? You need to consider the following items. Don't leave these things out. What is the reoccurring placement schedule during the day and overnight that you want? How do you want to divide holidays? How do you want to divide breaks from school? How will the periods of placement start and end? What time? And how will the parents transport the child and exchange the child? Will the child be allowed to contact the other parent in your care? And how will the child have access to electronic communication devices in your home? Can they use the devices to communicate with the other parent? Do you want sole custody or joint custody with the other parent? Who's going to make major decisions on education, medical care, child care, and religious upbringing? Where do you live? Where do you plan to live in the next 2 years? Where do the parents work? And who lives in each parent's household? Are any child care arrangements needed? What school will your child attend? Who is your child's medical providers? Do you have a preference for your child's religious upbringing? Has there been physical violence directed at you or the child by the other parent? And if so, what safety conditions need to be put in place for protection? Is there any evidence of endangerment to the child that needs to be addressed? Or is there any other evidence of endangerment, such as drugs, alcohol, emotional instability, mental illness, disorder, physical illnesses? Could be other family members, other children, or significant others. What's the plan? So creating a plan is really your first step to your success. It gives you clarity on what you want, and it demonstrates to others that you are well thought out. I was recently involved in a case, and the mother in that case had a detailed plan. At the time of our hearing, her plan had been provided in written form, and it was filed at least 1 year in advance of the hearing that we were now appearing on. This was the final decision being made by the court. Now, in contrast, the father got up and testified, and he was asked about his plan by his attorney. The father stated the mother can have the majority of summer placement and some holidays. The lack of plan gave little confidence to the court that that gentleman, whose custody matter had been pending now for more than a year, had any real insight into what the child actually needed and what was in the child's best interests. The fifth mistake made by men in a divorce action or custody action relates to their lack of involvement in the lives of their children. Many men assume that the law entitles them to get equal and shared placement. And these types rely on this premise instead of actually acting out the role of a parent. Being a parent is more than a title. You know that. A parent needs to be involved in the lives of their children, including attending activities, medical appointments, school events, helping them with their homework, friendships, relationships with family members. We need to be present for our kids in the morning, before school and after school, and in the evening. Now, not every family or parent is able to be with their kids at all times. You may need to work. You may need the assistance of childcare from family, friends, a private childcare provider. But make every effort to be present with your kids when you're not working. If you choose to spend time on your own hobbies or with friends and family and you're not doing those things with your kids, then you're in fact prioritizing those things over your children. So make sure to attend parent-teacher conferences, get involved in transportation, do activities, interact with your kids, do things that they like to do, go to the park, do art, read to them, listen to their stories. Courts tend to make decisions based on the past, and courts want to know how the parties operated in the past with respect to kids. Who gets them ready? Who takes them to school? Who's home in the evening? They'll want to know if you're willing to make changes to your lifestyle to accommodate your kids. Will you take a new type of employment, work a new shift? Will you use your paid time off or work flexibility to do things with your kids instead of using it on your own needs? Now, Wisconsin emphasizes continuity, and in fact, in post-divorce and post-judgment custody matters, the courts are required to focus on continuity, promote continuity in the future. It means that the parent who had the majority of the time in the past is the parent that's favored. And men assume that because they're now interested in their children, because they now want to spend more time with their kids, that they've made changes to their lives, that they should just get equal and shared placement. But it's not that simple. You cannot be an absent father or a part-time dad and then show up one day and expect to receive equal placement or primary placement. So there you have it, the top 5 mistakes that men make during a divorce. If you're going through a family case or think you might be soon, do yourself a favor. Plan ahead, get legal advice, and make informed decisions. Now, if you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future content. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below or reach out to my office. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.